We begin with the sad but final exit of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, during the week, that regional body that was founded in 1975. Now, with this development, Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tuggar, says the exit of the three nations would have far-reaching consequences on regional security, economic stability, and integration efforts. The countries formally renounced their membership of ECOWAS to form the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, on January 29. Now, disappointed with the turn of events, Tuggar explains that the withdrawal of the three countries from ECOWAS requires careful consideration and more diplomatic efforts to address underlying concerns and prevent further instability in the region. ECOWAS heads of state had imposed sanctions on the three countries to compel the military junta to relinquish power and revert to democratic rule. The sanctions were subsequently lifted, but not enough to change the stance of the three countries to pull out of the regional bloc. ECOWAS, however, says it has also decided to keep its doors, quote, open, and requested member nations to continue to accord the trio their membership privileges, including free movement within the region with an ECOWAS passport. Now, ECOWAS President Umar Aliyu Toure told reporters in Abuja that despite the split, the economic bloc remains hopeful that it will continue to collaborate with the countries in tackling some of the region's challenges, including the deadly extremist violence. All right, I'm glad to have joining us right now in the studio an Institute diplomat, one of Nigeria's finest, and is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Tuggar. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so let's talk about what's now next. I mean, we had all been hoping that before January 29, there could be some sort of backroom channels that will prevail on these three countries from exiting ECOWAS finally. But they've just gone ahead to do that, and they're trying to strengthen AES. And a lot of people are wondering why ECOWAS went ahead to take that decision for their citizens to continue to enjoy privileges within the economic community when they are no longer members of ECOWAS.
Because ECOWAS is acting as a very responsible organization. We know the effects of restricting movement in our region, because the Sahel is a semi-arid region. We've got the Sahara also within the region. There's a reason why the founders of ECOWAS and their successors came up with the concept of the ECOWAS protocol of free movement of people and goods, because there is something in the Hausa language, which is the perhaps most widely spoken local language in the region, referred to as Chirani, and that's seasonal migration. People move from the northern part of West Africa to the southern part during the dry months, and then when the rains are about to start falling, they move back home to toil the land. Now, that movement in many places is a matter of life and death. Mm-hmm. The problem that we face today is that that movement was stopped. Movement was restricted in the Sahel. The Sahel region was securitized. And if you remember, I'm sure you're old enough to remember, and it still exists, megads coming from the northern countries.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
many
you
of
will
them.
see Tuaregs with their turban in as far afield as Lagos and Port Harcourt and so many others that come during they're not there to stay. When the rainy season is about to begin, they move back. And it's a seasonal thing, because that's the only way you can survive in this region, and it goes back centuries. Now, what happened was decisions were taken by those same Sahelian states at the time in partnership with the EU, with the United Nations, to restrict some of that movement, because there's something referred to as the EU Sahel strategy, which sought to tackle what it considered the twin evils, for lack of a better word, of migration and terrorism, to kill two birds with one stone. And that is how Niger ended up with the what is referred to as Law 2015 36, which restricted movement, not only restricted movement, but criminalized any activity related to aiding what is deemed to be irregular migration. So if your vehicle is used in transporting migrants, if you rent out a room to migrants, you're deemed to have committed an offense. So all of that meant that there was a lot of pressure internally. The economy, because the entire economy of migration, which is something that sustained people in places like Agadez and north of Agadez, that's in Niger, ditto in Mali, same thing in Burkina Faso, ceased. And to further compound matters, you also had the use of certain Azawad groups, Tuareg groups that are irredentists, that are looking to create their own state.
And there was MNLA too, I mean, because I went to Mali to cover that Trans-Sahelian crisis.
Well, there you go. So they sought to use some of those groups to fight the terrorists. So it became a good cop, bad cop type situation. Which one is the lesser of two evils? Yeah. And in a country where you have soldiers that have been trained, it's been drummed into their heads from a young age, that their primary assignment is to keep their countries intact, surely something was going to give. So this is what further fueled the military coups that we witnessed in those countries. But beyond all of that, there was also, of course, the unrest, the instability, the insecurity that came about in Libya after the fall of Gaddafi, the Gaddafi regime. Because to date, we still have this problem of arms, ammunition, light weaponry, heavy weaponry, fighters, continued training of fighters moving from Libya into the Sahel and sometimes trickling down into our own countries. So this is part of the problem.
Yeah, and so a lot of people are beginning to say that with ECOWAS turning 50 this year, that the exit of these three countries is one of the biggest challenge that ECOWAS has faced. Your principal president, Tinubu, I mean, you've been speaking with him about all of this using the backroom channels and, of course, all other channels of discussion. Has he expressed some regrets as to if this will not be a taint on his diplomatic efforts? No,
it would not, and it would be unfair for anybody to taint him with that, because President Tinubu was not there when there was a coup, the first coup in Mali. And what I just described to you, securitization of the Sahel region and Libya and all of that, it wasn't President Tinubu that caused it.
But they said he was given the chairmanship of ECOWAS because there was that belief that he could actually, reunite the region despite all these challenges. And
okay, so food is becoming rotten, and then I pass it on to you and say, okay, here you are. Please make this fresh again. You'll try your best, but it doesn't mean that you are responsible for it becoming rotten. So if you look at what happened in 2020 or 2021, coup Mali, 2022 coup Burkina Faso, 2023, shortly after he had taken over, coup in Niger. And like I explained to you, you could see all of these things, all these factors were already in play. So he has actually tried his best, and to begin with, we have to tell ourselves the truth. The position taken by those AES states was always incompatible with them remaining in ECOWAS. Because the ECOWAS protocols that those same countries signed onto was that You cannot take your uniform off and continue as a military leader. As a civilian leader. So that is and apart from that, military coups are not permissible, not acceptable. This is something all the countries, all 15 countries agreed to this. So they know this.
Yeah, but they've seen, sorry to interject, the Honorable Minister, they've seen what's happening nearby in Chad. And the international community is looking at it carefully. It's not part of ECOWAS. But of course, these three countries that have military rulers, I've seen someone who was a military uniform transforming into a civilian leader. And the West is a little bit permissive. So why is it different from theirs? And that's why maybe they have to take this
because
decision.
This is ECOWAS and different rules. And in fact, ECOWAS stood as one of the shining lights, and it still does. By the way, the way it is being run, the way it is even funded. We've got a mechanism for generating funding for ECOWAS, so it stood as an example to others. So, but they also need a justification to continue in power. And they also need a justification for why things are not going well in their countries. So it is easy for you to just look at Nigeria and blame Nigeria, or blame sanctions, or blame, come up with these spurious allegations about France intervening through countries like Nigeria, which is totally ludicrous. Anybody that knows Nigeria, that understands the way Nigeria works, knows that, that is impossible. It's impossible for something like that to happen. But we cannot continue to remain on the defensive and to be responding to such spurious allegations. And Nigerians also have to realize that this is inimical to the interests of Nigeria. You cannot be championing the interests of another country against yours, especially when it's your country that is in the right.
Yeah, but
of course, what did Nigeria do?
Excellency, you understand that the filial ties between Nigeria and Niger, for example, from the northern part of the country, are so strong that when some of these issues started,
the filial ties between Nigeria and Niger more than the filial ties between northern Nigeria and southern Nigeria? They're not. First and foremost, we want peace in our country. We want to live in harmony, in peaceful coexistence with the citizens of Nigeria. That should be the primary focus. So a situation where you are cheerleading a government that is operating without a constitution against your own government that is operating with a constitution, which is what even gives you the right to criticize. It protects your right as an individual to criticize your country, to criticize your leaders, to criticize anybody you want in the country and sleep in peace. Something you cannot do in those countries.
Yeah, but
I think something is fundamentally
wrong there. The
Nigerian
leader was trying to actually whip up sentiments in northern Nigeria because of those ties, and of course you will have seen that Nigeria was actually ensuring that there was economic diplomacy between us and Niger. We gave a contract for building rail lines up to there. So there's something that ties us, and maybe he felt that if he speaks ill of President Tinubu being a southerner, that maybe it may whip up some sentiments.
And that was a very dangerous
Have you been able to counter that effectively?
We have been doing that. We've been doing that effectively. We have explained as best we can the true situation. We are not the ones responsible for a military coup in any of those countries. Nigeria had no role in that. We're not responsible for the conditions precedent that brought about the current situation they find themselves in. When they went ahead and partnered with the EU in implementing the EU Sahel strategy in Operation Barkhane, in G5 Sahel, Nigeria was not a part of that. Nigeria was involved in MNJTF because of Boko Haram. We were never part of that. We were not invited to partake in that, and we did not participate in that. Where Nigeria has been involved in resolving conflicts, in peace building, you can see how successful that has been in the region. And that's ECOMOG. You saw what we did in Sierra Leone, you saw what we did in Liberia. In fact, we succeeded in peace building where a lot of nations that are far wealthier than us, far more powerful than us, have not done so.
Yeah. So let's talk about the issues of Lakurawa, because a lot of people are afraid that with this exit of these countries, the issues of Sahelian security superstructure will be divided. Will the MNJTF still be functioning very well? How do we tackle this new sect with which the Nigerian leader was trying to whip up sentiments that we have something to do with it and all of that? And should Nigerians actually trust our government more when it comes to the assurances that we'll be receiving from the federal government that the Lakurawa will soon be out, will soon be taken out?
Certainly, but again, just like I explained earlier, Lakurawa and some of the effects of what we're experiencing, particularly in the Northwest, has to do with the failings of strategies and approaches within the Sahel. And we are now bearing the brunt. For instance, this strengthening of certain Tuareg, Azawad groups that are separatists, conflicts between Tuaregs and herder communities and so forth. We're beginning to feel the effects of that through, because some of them have been displaced and they moved southwards into northwestern Nigeria, into Zamfara, into Sokoto, into Kebbi, and this is what we're contending with. So, but beyond all of that, you cannot simply say, let us solve our security problems by appeasing the AES, or even if you do work with them on the security issues, the security superstructure you mentioned, it goes beyond the Sahel, it goes beyond the AES, until and unless we're able to eventually resolve the situation in Libya. You will continue to have this problem, because it's like solving a problem in front of your house and then the back door, there's still a problem. They will continue.
Yeah, but how about the multinational joint task force? Will it still be operational?
The MNJTF is different from,
in the light of
and the MNJTF is not an ECOWAS structure, because don't forget that Cameroon and Chad are they don't belong to ECOWAS. So yes, Republic of Benin belongs to it, which is good. But apart from the MNJTF also, the ECOWAS has created a 1,650 strong brigade, which is supposed to be increased to a 3,000 standby force, specifically for fighting terrorism. This is something that we're going to see getting into action. And you have several initiatives within the region to strengthen the fight against terrorism. This is why also Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali were being offered $1 million, even at the height of the bellicosity towards the ECOWAS countries. We were still offering assistance to fight against terrorism, still offering assistance to fight, to support efforts towards tackling the effects of natural disasters such as flooding. They were given $500,000 each.
Yeah. Well, just before we go on this short break, I want you to talk to me about the counter strategy that these three countries are also pushing back with. They are trying to woo Togo, which incidentally is supposed to be part of those dialoguing with them, so that they will have access to the sea. Because these three countries, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, are landlocked. And Togo says it is considering such an offer. If Togo does leave ECOWAS, I mean, wouldn't it be all?
Well, you see, sometimes the factors that bind us together are far much stronger. And you have to bear in mind that countries operate in an anarchical international system. So national interest comes first. A situation where Togo leaves ECOWAS is simply unthinkable. Forget about what anybody would say. At a time when we have gone very far with the ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme, at a time when you have SIGMAT for customs, easy clearing of containers and other goods in transit, at a time when we have concluded on the intergovernmental agreement to be signed for the African Atlantic gas agreement that would deliver gas all the way from Nigeria to Morocco and then further on to the European, to Europe through the Maghreb, the already existing Maghreb line. This is not something that is likely to happen. No country along the literal coast of West Africa is leaving ECOWAS. I can tell you that for free. Forget about what anybody might say, grandstanding, whatever. The reality is different from any rhetoric you might hear.
All right, and very quickly, does President Tinubu feel any sense of personal loss over this exit of these three countries? Because these are young people in some of these countries. He's tried to talk to them, he's tried to woo them, he sent diplomats, yourself and others. Despite all that you have said, even ECOWAS relaxing its sanctions, they just want to go away. Isn't someone somewhere assuring them of something much more better than what they are getting under ECOWAS?
President Tinubu is one politician that understands or comprehends the intersection between economics and politics more than most politicians. So, and he also appreciates the temporal necessities of time. He understands time and timing. So I'm sure he knows that this is transient. He's seen a lot of things, during the course of his career. Okay, so this is just a minor hiccup in the history of ECOWAS. It's not something that is going to prevail, because the overwhelming majority of the citizenry of these countries are not for leaving ECOWAS. So we're just going through, yes, we're going through a period where there's a military regime, or there are military regimes at the helm of affairs in these countries, and they've taken this decision. So let's give it time, and I'm pretty sure, and we have absolutely no problem with an AES grouping within ECOWAS.
Oh, and, interesting.
Yeah,
so,
because
there
are other groupings. There are other groupings. There's Mano River, for instance, within ECOWAS.
Actually,
so there's nothing that says you can't have your own grouping.
Okay.
Even Nigeria itself has the Nigeria-Niger Joint Commission, which is still in existence, and we still continue to meet with them. And we're still building infrastructure. Niger recently took a decision to build an inland container port to augment the Kano-Maradi rail line, which is over 60% completed today. So let's stop looking sometimes at rhetoric.
So the economic diplomacy side of the challenge is working.
That is it. So,
all right.
Let's look at, the reality on ground.
All right.
I haven't even talked to you about the Nigerians that are in Nigeria today.
All right, and I know that many of them usually buy food and all of that more from Nigeria, and it's a big challenge for citizens within these countries. But we'll just go on a short break, Honorable Minister, and when we come back, we'll go this time around internal and hear what some of your political traducers are saying, that actually that you should bear the brunt for some of these shortfalls in the diplomacy challenges that we've faced. And one of that huge critic of yours is Bauchi Governor Bala Mohammed. So I'll just ask you to hold on while we go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll be discussing more. Stay with us. Welcome back from the break. You're still watching This Week, and I'm Sam Nasambo. Now, also in the week, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Maitama Tuggar, and the Governor of Bauchi State, Bala Mohammed, disagreed over the state of affairs in their home state, and Nigeria, accusing each other of failing to fulfill official obligations amid accusations of President Tinubu's alleged anti-North policies. The duo have been at loggerheads over the governor's criticism of the tax reform bills. In a statement Wednesday, Dr. Aminu Gamawa, Chief of Staff to the governor, described Tuggar's actions as, quote, undiplomatic and opportunistic. He says Tuggar's attacks on Bala Mohammed are clearly motivated by his ambition to contest the Bauchi governorship in 2027, but noted that a strategy of maligning the governor allegedly will backfire, as the people of Bauchi have witnessed Bala Mohammed's transformative leadership and will not be swayed by the rhetoric of, quote, an absentee politician. Well, on the current face-off between Tuggar and Governor Bala Mohammed, we still have with us in the studio Ambassador Yusuf Tuggar, who's one of Nigeria's finest diplomats, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Thank you so much for still being here with us. Well, these are very difficult times politically. Coming to domestic issues in your state, home state of Bauchi, I mean, the governor has very, very unkind words for you, saying that you could have done better as minister, but because of your decision to want to contest for 2027, you've been distracted at the national and international level by your ambition to be governor of Bauchi State. How true is that?
Well, the governor knows. He knows that I don't work that way. It's not about governorship or contesting. If it was about a governorship, I wouldn't have been the one that invited him shortly after he had been sworn in as governor. I invited him to Berlin, where I was serving as ambassador, where he signed 5 MOUs. 5 MOUs. With German companies and a German state. And through that initiative, he was able to make perhaps what was the first positive impression of his administration. I organized for him to receive 1,000 what they refer to as mobility cards for the disabled. The pictures are there. The video footage is there. The MOUs that he signed are there for the record. Okay. I then also organized for an NGO called Water is Right. He doesn't know that NGO from Adam. I organized it because the owner of the NGO happens to be someone that I went to school with, a German, and I organized for them to come and fix toilets in all the local governments in their hospitals, state-owned hospitals. He knows that. So if it was about governorship, then I wouldn't have been doing that. I wouldn't want him to look good.
And you have
hit back at him. But now the situation arises where I see him deliberately trying to mislead people and trying to foment, to sow seeds of discord in Nigeria because of his personal ambition, because he thinks that he has no other way to continue hiding behind immunity than to contest for president because his term will soon end. He ran for governor primarily to get the cover of immunity. Because if you remember here, after he finished all the land grabbing here in the FCT, he ended up in EFCC. And then he had to start pushing to become governor to have that immunity. What did he do when he went to Bauchi State? He took that same template that he was using because he's been a civil servant and subsequently managed to go into the Senate. Okay, so all he knows is to rely on government, to use his proboscis to continue to lap up whatever he can from government. Well, that's all he knows. If you take him out of government, he does not know how to subsist on his own. He's never worked before.
Well, he actually says you are an absentee politician, that you don't know so much that's going on in Bauchi State. And so that's why you can't see all his achievements.
I am a grassroots politician. When I went into politics, I was well over 40 when I went into politics. I was successful in the private sector on my own. Okay, I'd never worked a day in government before I went into politics. And when I went into politics, I ended up contesting for a seat and went to the House of Representatives. He knows that. And when I went to contest for the House of Representatives, I returned to my constituency, which is not an urban constituency. It's a rural constituency. And to date, the member of the House of Representatives from that constituency is somebody that is my political associate. State House of Assembly from that constituency is someone that is my associate, and both are APC because APC won that constituency. So he that is the, what is it? He calls me an absentee. He that is the ever-present politician. Tell me how he couldn't defeat me in my own constituency. How?
Well, the tendency to think that maybe you're a threat to his potential party candidate.
The fact that sometimes I speak air-conditioned English does not mean that I am not a local politician or that I don't know what is happening locally.
Yeah, but he says, I mean, you tried to be governor previously and you didn't succeed. And so he feels he's on ground more than you and that you don't seem to be seeing his successes just because he criticized President Tinubu's tax reforms.
I contested against his political godfather at the time, Isa Iguda. As an incumbent, I had the guts, I had the stomach to take on Isa Iguda at the time when all of them was scurrying and running and hiding. Because he was a senator at the time, but he was too scared to take on Isa Iguda, his boss. He was special assistant to Isa Iguda. But I came because I had that independence of mind, okay, and subsistence to be able to take on Isa Iguda. And at that time, he was busy trying to hide behind me so that he would have some cover from General Muhammadu Buhari at the time, retired, before he had become president. So he knows, so he cannot forget about.
He's accusing you of mismanaging the ECOWAS debacle, saying that you could have done better.
I have said it before.
Under you, a lot of things have gone wrong.
I have said it before. I was not there, President Tinubu was not there when there was a coup in Burkina Faso in 2020, 2021. I was not, sorry, Mali. I was not there. I was not minister, okay? President Tinubu was not president when there was a coup in Burkina Faso, 2022. I was not minister when there was a coup in Niger. So how can you come and now tell me that I am responsible for ECOWAS, for those countries leaving ECOWAS? Nobody will believe you. You see, this thing is simple and straightforward. If he's so fascinated by diplomacy and he's very interested in the field, he can come and take lessons. He can come anytime he's in
Abuja. You're willing to offer him
I would be more than willing to spare 30 minutes, 1 hour, give him some tutorials, then he will understand. But it's not his forte. He should please concentrate on Bauchi. Now he has a chance to continue his land grabbing there. He can continue maybe doing that. But he has to know that this is not something that is sustainable. No, they're not.
Yeah, but do you have a problem with Bala Mohammed criticizing President Tinubu's tax reform policies in such a way that will be beneficial, because he's saying that these bills will kick against the interests of the North.
Problem with him,
and that the North will pay back. The North won't forget in 2027.
My problem with him is not criticizing President Tinubu. My problem with him is the manner in which he's criticizing President Tinubu. His insincerity. He lacks that sincerity of purpose. He's still simply doing it, okay, to whip up sectional sentiments and create division in Nigeria, to create some kind of north-south dichotomy that he thinks he can take advantage of so that he will continue to enjoy immunity from prosecution.
Isn't it
Should
all
he
fair
be able
politics?
to run for president? And no, it's not fair. It's not fair.
Yeah,
we have to
did
go
you
back
listen,
to basics.
Honorable Minister, did you listen to the talks by opposition political leaders in the last week, like Atiku Abubakar, and even Nasser El-Rufai, who's in the APC, and all of that? They are saying that the APC-led federal government is not making the conditions right.
Were they not all in government? Did they not just leave government? Why is it that some people think in a nation of 220 million people that they have some sort of right to perpetuate themselves in government, that they must always be in government? This is our problem.
Well,
and this is why you always have this. The moment they find themselves out of government, they start grouping together to find a way to come back into government. And sometimes you will see that some of those people, the moment a slight door is opened, left ajar, and they're invited to come and take one position or the other, they come running. So this insincerity has to stop.
Well, this is some of the policies being put in place by your principal, President Tinubu, seems to be anti-North, and that is a groundswell of, anti-Tinubu sentiments ongoing in the North now, and he may not survive 2027. How do you reply to these critics?
It is a dangerous narrative that they are creating. There is no iota of truth in that. And you can see even with the governors, when they examined after all the hue and cry, when the tax reform bill was examined, they all endorsed it, including the Bala, because he knew that he would be the
after
only
more consultation,
the odd one out. No, because people sometimes don't even sit down to read these things. Yes, some governors read it and felt that they had to speak out and say, look, we need to look at this thing critically. They had valid points. They had cogent arguments. But all it takes is to ask for explanation, not to start saying, oh, look what is going to happen. The North is going to be marginalized. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
Do you have
Bala is not more northern than me. I'm more northern than Bala. So therefore, he has nothing. He has not earned the right or the credentials. When he was busy serving in Goodluck Jonathan's government, sitting on carpets and all of that, he didn't know, sitting on the floor, just so that he would continue to maintain his position. He did not know that there was a North back then. Then all of a sudden, he has discovered that there's a North, simply because of immunity.
And it's not only you he's having issues with. I mean, even your colleague, Nyesom Wike of the FCT ministry, is also having issues with him.
Because he's seen the mess that he created.
Nyesom
Wike is now FCT minister. He has access to the files. He's seen the mess that Bala left in that ministry. And that is why he's so angered by him.
Now, Honorable Minister, do you have a governorship ambition for 2027, and are you already putting structures on ground that's making Governor Bala Mohammed to be a little bit fidgety?
That is not even something that is on my mind at the moment. I have a job to do. I'm doing it, but I'm a stakeholder in Bauchi State. I will continue to pay attention to what is going on in Bauchi, how Bauchi is being governed. So that is a ploy to distract from the look. The issues that are brought up, they're not personal. I'm not attacking Governor Bala on personal issues. I am saying you're land grabbing, you're appropriating land from poor farmers, from herders, from taking grazing reserves, and you're cutting down the wood, turning it into charcoal, selling it with your partners, allowing them to do that. You're going to get commercial loans, okay, to say you're going to farm. You're not you yourself, you're taking land saying that you're a farmer.
Well,
all of a sudden,
for agricultural purposes.
Let us see what he has produced out of that. Let us see what he's produced out of that.
All
you
right.
know, dethroning traditional rulers that don't go along with that. These are facts. I've not said anything that is not factual. So the issue of governorship is not what.
Yeah, I mean, you would have also heard what.
If it was the issue of governorship, then I would have started preparing from that time when I invited him in 2019, and I arranged for him to sign those MOUs, and I got funding for him to go and look good by fixing hospital toilets in Bauchi State, in all the local governments.
Minister Tuggar, before I let you go, I just want to ask you this question. Why are top politicians like you all against Bala? I mean, I've seen Yakubu Dogara, former speaker, also had to hit Bala Mohammed so hard, saying that he actually betrayed the trust of people like Nyesom Wiki and others. I mean, why does it look like some of you, the political elites, are just against the governor?
It's simply because there is no other state going through what Bauchi State is going through today. Bauchi State has been pauperized. Okay? Instead of focusing on social services, instead of focusing on infrastructure, he's busy building, expanding a government house. And with variations. It started at 6.6 billion, taking it to 9 point something, taking it to, I think it's about 16.6 billion.
He says
and
it's
then
one of the best government houses in Nigeria.
Is that our priority? Is our priority education for out-of-school children, healthcare for the poor, farmers, giving them inputs so that they would be able to farm? Is that not what should be priority? Is it government house? Who asked him to go and build a new government house for us? What is wrong with the one he has now? And where did he get the money all of a sudden to build another mansion in Bauchi while the construction of a government house is going? So this is what is angering people like us, and that is why we're speaking out. And don't forget, to start off, Bauchi State is an agrarian state. It's it's full of agrarian communities, and you're putting those people further into hardship, diverting rivers, creating flooding, creating disasters that are not natural.
All right, I won't let you go, Honorable Minister, after asking two critical questions, I mean, away from Bauchi State. Now, the first has to do with why President Tinubu hasn't put in place a mechanism for the quick announcement of new ambassadors. I mean, embassies, consulates, and all of that seem to be suffering. People are saying that, look, it's getting too much. I know some of you said that former President Buhari also did same. I mean, but for how long can we continue without substantive ambassadors? And then secondly, what do you think of Trump's deportation policies? And of course, what measures are you putting in place to safeguard the interests of Nigerians who may be affected and sent back home?
So with the ambassadors, that's above my pay grade. That is a decision that is in the exclusive purview of Mr. President. And it's not for me to decide for him. And remember I said to you that, in my opinion, in terms of timing, temporal considerations, and understanding the intersection between economics and politics, I think he's one of the brighter minds when it comes to that in Nigeria. So he knows best why he's delaying it, you know, and maybe you guys should organize an interview and then you can, put that question to him. But it does not mean that our missions are not functioning. It doesn't mean that we don't have diplomats out there. We do, okay? We continue to work. Initially, I know that the consideration was funding, because he came and met the country in a huge deficit, some 7 billion or so. Now, we've gone into what, reserves 40 or something like that. So you have to do this. When you post out ambassadors, first of all, you can't send them out without something to work with. Tickets alone for them, their families, okay, their wives, their kids, all of that has to be taken care of. some places that don't have vehicles, you have to equip and all of that. So the outlay is quite substantial.
All right.
But, you know, I'm not making excuses for him. He knows best. He says he's not ready for that yet, and I'm going by what the president says. But I know that our missions are functioning, and we'll continue to do our best. So I urge you to seek for an interview with him. And
we'll surely do.
You can ask that question.
Yeah.
Then on Trump's policies vis-a-vis migration and deportations, even yesterday I spoke to Chargé d'Affaires in Washington, D.C., and he says he is in constant touch with the U.S. government, and they know exactly the number of those that are being held. It's not like, you know, the figures that other countries have to deal with, thankfully.
So it's
we don't know if the situation will change, but we are already making contingency plans to be able to accommodate any such eventuality. So we're on top of it.
All right, we hope they don't come back to Nigeria in chains like we are seeing with other citizens of other countries. But
certainly not.
In 30 seconds before I let you go, when former President Yar'Adua came, he had issues, and one of his overarching foreign policy was on citizen diplomacy. We've had others saying there's this economic diplomacy, and others, like, I mean, in the 70s, Africa is the centerpiece of Nigeria's foreign policy. What exactly is the overarching policy direction of the Tinubu administration?
Strategic autonomy. We will deal with all countries to protect, improve, and benefit for the benefit of our national interests. This is it. And then, of course, around that, we've got those 4 pillars, the 4 Ds, which is democracy, development, demography, and diaspora. And when I say demography, democracy, don't take it literally. I don't mean that every country has to become democratic in our own image. No, there are different applications or different approaches to democracy. But definitely, we are in full support of constitutional governance. So if there's a constitution that protects the fundamental rights of individuals, you know you're on the right path.
All right. Well, we must thank you so much, Ambassador Yusuf Tuggar. And of course, there was this treatise you recently wrote on, foreign policy in a very terrible neighborhood or something like that. Yeah. And I mean, I read it. It was very exciting and educating. We must thank you so much for joining us on this week to actually take a look at what's been happening across the globe, and of course, domestic issues too in your home state of Bauchi State. We've been discussing with the Minister of Foreign Affairs here in Nigeria, Ambassador Yusuf Tuggar, who has been helping us to understand the decision between ECOWAS and the 3 countries that decided to exit the economic bloc. Since 1975, this has been one of the major challenges. And as ECOWAS turns 50, we'll continue to see how the chairman of the ECOWAS, heads of state and government, President Tinubu, will continue to do shuttle diplomacy that hopefully may reduce issues. But that's the much we can take on this edition of This Week. Thanks to our production team here in Abuja, Lagos, and London. To join us same time next week for another exciting edition. I'm Somna Samuel.